All right, let's welcome back everyone. You're not gonna believe it, but we are two plant-based brothers, and we're here with another episode. My name is William the Teach, and this is my brother.
Daniel Nowotnik Beard on the trail. Hello.
Hello, very good. And we are now in April.
Yeah, it's Good Friday, isn't it?
It's a good question. It's a good question. I have to figure out what day it actually is and then what day this is coming out. But I do want to send a special thank you to all the people who did not watch our March Madness video. Thank you. It was our least watched video. And thank you because we lived up to the hype, right, Daniel?
Yes, sure.
In that video, we said we knew or lived down to the hype.
I was going to say it has to be opposite.
We both admitted to not knowing anything, and it turns out we did not know anything. So, yeah.
Horrible bracket. My bracket was busted, I think, on day 2 or day 3.
Day 2. No, day 3. Yeah. It was definitely in the second round. So it was either Thursday or Friday. Yours was busted. Mine was busted the following week. We had a lot of things that didn't go exactly right, but when you lose your champion before even the final four,
forget about it.
Yeah, so Daniel lost his champion in the round of 32. I lost mine in the Sweet 16. So, if you got a perfect bracket, go ahead and brag. And this is my also a new thing that I'm going to try to remember to do now is go ahead and leave us comments. Go ahead. Don't be afraid. I usually say this at the end of the video, and I know not everyone watches till the end, but a lot of people watch the first 5 minutes. So comment on anything. And if you want a good laugh, go back and actually watch that March Madness video. You don't need a reason to laugh or make fun of us, but it could be hindsight's 2020. And if you did pick the eventual winner or pick the perfect Final Four, go ahead and let us know. We'll listen to it. So anyway, and yeah, Easter's around the corner, Daniel. Yes. So back to burritos, I imagine.
I am eagerly awaiting it so bad. I'm really looking forward to tortillas.
Yeah.
My daughter, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but she had gone vegetarian for Lent.
Oh, wow.
Can I
Congrats.
share a quick story about it?
Yeah, of course.
She went vegetarian. She's been so diligent about it and figuring out what has meat and what doesn't. We recently went up to Utah over this past couple days, and we had a fire pit and we were making s'mores. And then I shared with her, because I had forgotten too. I was like, "Oh, marshmallows actually have gelatin in it and comes from animals." And she was devastated, William, just devastated. And I was like, if you want, it's your choice. If you want a marshmallow, you can have a marshmallow. She chose not to eat the marshmallows. Can you believe that?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't worry about that.
She's in it though. Like she is
Yeah.
so in it, and I'm so proud of her for making that decision completely on her own. Like I was even almost egging her on. I'm like, hey, just have a marshmallow. It's okay.
But it is. I mean, that's the whole thing. I think most vegetarians wouldn't even mind that. I mean, most vegetarians just don't eat meat. And you guys can correct me if you want to, but they don't quite worry about what's in all the products, right?
Right. And so I'm proud of her for taking it serious and making a sacrifice, because that's kind of what we've been really talking about, Lent, of making a sacrifice towards it, something that maybe you enjoy, something that's better for you, that sort of thing. So really proud of her doing it. She's really sticking to it. And she is eagerly counting the days to have a marshmallow on Easter Monday, I guess.
No, I think you can do it now. I think Good Friday is actually the end of it.
Okay,
but
Good Friday.
I always kind of waited till Easter Day. Sometimes, there were a few times when you could find me at 12:01 Easter morning. Yeah. When it switched to Sunday, cracking open a brew or having a big chunk of meat or something, saying I made it.
Imagining like the Flintstone, like big,
a brontosaurus, something. Yeah. I don't know. Brontosaurus burger. Anyway, we're almost there. Congratulations to her. And who knows? Maybe she'll just stick with it. Maybe she'll eat marshmallows, but not, chicken or beef or something like that. Yeah. We'll see. Anyway, this is, believe it or not, Daniel,
Mm-hmm.
episode 30.
3-0.
3-0. So I thought it would be fun, and I think you agreed. So we thought it would be fun to talk about the wonderful, I guess series you could call it, by ESPN called 30 for 30.
Yes.
And do you know the when this happened, Daniel, or why it started? Any background on it?
I don't really remember the why or how, but I was looking over like episodes that had come out, and I want to say it was like 2010 is when 2009, maybe late 2009, 2010 is when they started to be like released on ESPN.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you the exact year, but it was for their 30th anniversary.
Okay.
According to my sources, it was for their 30th anniversary, and they're going to have 30 different filmmakers
Hmm.
make 30 short films
Hmm.
for their 30th. And That's where we got 30 for 30. And I think it just continued on after that.
Yes.
So it's kind of a misnomer now, but the original intent was the 30 films. So whenever it did, I was really hooked on watching these. And I found them, a lot of them, very interesting, and learning things that either, learning things I didn't know,
Hmm.
or remembering and rediscovering things that I knew about.
Hmm.
But there were a lot of interesting ones. I mean, if I ask you, what's a couple that stand out, what do you think?
No, I have a few, and so I kind of broke it into like half and half. So I had like less than a handful of ones that weren't necessarily something that I, as a fan of, would like watch. So like you were saying, learn something new about something else. So I have a couple of those, and then I have the ones that are about like the teams that I follow that got me a deeper dive into that history and
Yeah.
remembering some things that I did know, and then also learning. So I kind of break up the kind of the three first that were not really didn't really know about. And one was Elway to Marino, which I think was kind of I don't know if that was the first season or not, but that it was all about the draft of that year. And in between the picks and then the whole Elway thing, I had no idea how he didn't want to go. I think it was the Baltimore Colts or something at the time,
Yeah,
right?
that's true. He said he was going to play for the Yankees.
Yeah, exactly. Went to the Yankees,
Yeah.
and I most recently have been watching his newish documentary that came out. It was just about Elway. I followed asleep, so I haven't finished it. Each time it's a good way to fall asleep. These documentaries. So that was one. Jordan rides the bus was another one when he retired from basketball and then went to play baseball. That one was
Crazy.
fascinating. I
Yeah.
know. And then the third one is a more recent-ish one, and that was Believeland, which is all about the Cleveland going so long, the entire city going so long without a championship in any of the sports there. And then what I didn't know, William, was that when it came out in 2016, they actually had to re-release it because that's the year the Cavs won the championship. So they filmed it.
2016?
Yes, they
I
created it and then they had to re-release it
Because I think that was the year the Indians, that formerly known as the Indians, lost to the Cubs in the World Series,
in the
I
World
think.
Series. Yeah, no, it was
Yeah.
crazy. So pretty cool. So those are three off the bat. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, no, I was very much in your boat when I was trying to think of these things, and the ones that I watched where I didn't know much about,
Hmm.
and then the ones that I knew some and wanted to kind of, rehash it or find out more, right? And so for the first part, we grew up as USC fans, right? Dad watched them. I watched. I wouldn't say I watched a lot of college football as a youngster, like in the
Hmm.
80s, right? It was maybe the later 80s was when I pretty much got into it.
Hmm.
The Rodney Pete years were big for me, starting out. But other than that, I mean, if they played in the Pac-10, it was called the Pac-10, and other aspects of college football I wasn't so aware of, you
Hmm.
know. And so there are a few that really stood out, and I'm going to name three of them, right?
Okay.
One was the U,
Okay.
right? The U under Jimmy Johnson, I just thought was fascinating.
Hmm.
The way that whole thing went, and Michael Irvin, I think is I don't know if he's an amazing person, but he's an amazing personality, I feel,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
And
absolutely.
and definitely when those two, Jimmy Johnson and Irvin, played for the Cowboys, I was not a
Mhm.
fan. Despite Grandma's her best efforts to make us Cowboy fans, I was not. And
Yes.
I did not like them. And now I don't care because I don't care about the NFL at all. But I thought that was exciting. I found it very interesting and a deep dive into how college football was. Another
Mhm.
one was about SMU.
Okay.
Um, and it was about basically, donors and the
Mhm.
money and all this other stuff. And you've seen a couple different things like that and how that used to be.
Mhm.
And another one was about Marcus Dupree, the best that never was,
Mm.
a running back, and I can't remember which school it was, but he
Yeah.
ended up going to the USFL or something like that. And I just was like, wow. I mean, I lived in these times. I was a
Mhm.
youngster, but I did live through this because I knew who Craig James was. Obviously, I knew who Eric Dickerson was, but
Right.
that was after he came to the Rams, not when he was at SMU.
Mhm.
And SMU got the death penalty, and then they came back, and it's like interesting to think about. Nowadays, it is perfectly acceptable, and on the up and up to pay players, and
Yeah.
and
I
there
think
there it
Reggie
is.
Bush got his Heisman back, or they offered his Heisman back, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the whole thing, that this has happened forever, right? Especially
Mhm.
with the big programs. And then they get a slap on the wrist or something else like that, and then stuff like the players get busted, but nothing happens to the donors or the executives, or
Correct.
Pete Carroll just goes to the NFL when they
Yeah,
find out.
he slid right out.
Sneaky Pete, you know? And so those three stick out, and they're all
Yeah.
college football ones. So let's get down to the ones that you were like, yeah, I remember this and I want to learn more about it.
Well, one of them was perfect. It is actually Pete Carroll's Trojan War. It was
Mm.
about that whole situation with Reggie Bush and the USC Trojan football team at that time, their height as well. I don't know. It was like two championships, and then one was vacated or whatever. In a short period of time. And so that one I just thought was great. I loved Matt Leinart at the time. Like it was a fun time to watch USC football.
No
And
doubt.
then just in around that time, my sister-in-law actually went to USC too, so went to a few games as well. So it was a lot of fun. So that one was really cool. Fernando Nation, like as a Dodgers fan, but that one was really fascinating to me because it was pre my existence in a
Yeah.
way, right?
No, it
And
was though. It
like
was. It was
literally it
before
was,
you.
but
It
that's true.
literally
80,
before you were
81, I
born.
think. Yep, 81.
Yeah.
And so that one was really fascinating because I grew up knowing about Fernando, knowing that he meant so much to the Dodgers organization, but not really knowing a lot about Fernando Mania, for instance. I've watched, dad in his last few years of his life, and even before that, would have the Dodger station on repeat. So there was a lot of backstage Dodger episodes I saw
Yeah.
about Fernando. So this has been a while since I saw Fernando Nation. And then the third one is the Celtics Lakers, and that one's just cool because that goes back for that rivalry all the way back to the olden days of basketball, and that was cool learning a bit more about the rivalry in detail because my grasp and all that was Lakers Showtime, right? Showtime was the biggest part of my history of it, and even then I was quite little during that period of time when I became a Lakers fan. Really, in my teenage-ish years, we sucked up until Kobe and Shaq, right? Like the early mid
What
'90s.
are you
It
talking
was
about? The Nick Van Exel,
well,
Eldon
and I loved
Campbell,
them. I
Eddie
loved them to
Jones.
death. I love Nick Van Exel. And they were fun. Eddie Jones, like they were fun to watch. Like I really enjoyed the Lakers at that time, but we didn't necessarily win anything. It
Yeah,
wasn't
no, I
until
don't think
Kobe.
anyone cried when they traded Vladdy for some high school kid.
Yeah, I think everyone did. Nobody understood it. And then what did Kobe, threw an
No.
air
Did you
ball
cry when
essentially?
they traded
No,
Vladdy?
of course not.
No.
No.
We got Shaq, and
Yeah.
then
Oh
so
yeah.
yeah, they trade get rid of Vladdy,
I
and
still remember the day where I was. This is so funny. I remember the day where I was when I found out that we got Shaq. Is that weird?
no, I
Yes.
do too.
Really? Where were you? We're probably the same place. I don't know.
I was at Bass Lake, California.
So was I.
We found out in the newspaper.
Newspaper.
Yeah, an actual physical paper. Was that 96? I want to say maybe
Uh,
95.
I think it could have been 96 because Kobe didn't come in until 97, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, oh
I,
no.
I I don't remember the exact dates, but yeah, that's very interesting.
So
So,
those are my three like really like fandom love those particular teams and really enjoyed it. And then I have a bonus one that I'll give after you share yours.
well, I mean, funny enough that mine, I think all three revolve around LA sports,
Uh,
and that's because that's what I grew up in, And so one was about the Gretzky trade.
okay, yeah,
They
which is
broke
the
down
first one, right?
I could have been the first one, but it's just like, yeah, I lived that
Mm-hmm.
because no one cared.
No.
I'm sorry, they really people didn't really care about the Kings. I mean, they're diehard fans. Don't get me wrong. I used to watch the Kings when they were purple and gold,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't understand it. I don't know, Bernie Nichols or whoever. Luke Robitaille might have been later. I'm not sure when they
Yeah.
got him. Anyway, I was never a big fan. I'm still never a big fan, but I think the buzz in the LA market
Mm-hmm.
when they got the greatest, right? It was big deal. But I think this segues into my next one. One of the biggest things that they did, one of the best things that the Kings did when they got Gretzky was they changed from that purple and gold to the black,
Mm-hmm.
silver and black.
Yeah.
And there was another 30 for 30 about NWA
Mm-hmm.
and the Raiders basically.
Yeah.
And it was really crazy when Easy E and NWA, Ice Cube, Dr. Dre, all they started wearing Raiders gear. And then Raiders gear just popped up everywhere. Like
Mm-hmm.
everyone was wearing Raiders gear, and people who didn't even know or care about the team. It was just
Mm-hmm.
it became fashion. Is where sports transcends
Mm-hmm.
sports and goes into
Culture.
society, culture, and fashion. And so those were definitely two of them. And I think I may have forgotten the third one. I'm gonna have to check my notes real quick and see if I still have it up here. Um, oh, yeah, of course, you already mentioned it. That's why I forgot about it. It was Fernando Mania.
Okay.
I was a youngster, right? I
Uh-huh.
was I was little when Fernando Mania took off, and yeah, it was a big deal. I mean, it
Yeah.
really was a big deal, and I think it still is for a lot of people. You still see those Valenzuela 34 jerseys.
Yep.
And not is he was with the Padres for a short period of time in the 90s, but there was still this love in the Mexican American community for this man. And I really can't go through the history of baseball and trying to find the first big Mexican star. I'm not sure. But in Southern California, where we have a lot of a humongous Mexican American community, to see one of your own was just it was a big deal and it was so
Mhm.
exciting and he was just unbelievable.
Lights
I mean,
out, man. Lights
just
out.
great. And I like to watch Fernando bat too. He could I don't know his stats, but he could go up there and hit it around.
Yeah.
Lasorda would use him as a pinch hitter sometimes. I remember one game went like 26 innings or something. He played first base.
I never knew that one.
It was a time and it was exciting. But to say I totally grasped those moments is not true because I was so young. I was like five,
Right.
6 years old.
Right.
But those are three. And then I had a couple others that I did want to touch on. So, but you said you had like a wild card after I mentioned my
I
three.
have a bonus one, and that was if I were gonna say what one have I seen the most of, and I mean on repeat. I've watched this 30 for 30, and it's my wife and I's like kind of favorite sports thing to watch over and over. And since it came out, however many years ago, we probably watched it like, 60 times perhaps. Like it's a lot. And that is 4 days in October. I cannot get enough of that documentary. That's the Boston Red Sox, being down 0-3 to the Yankees, 2004, I think it was. And
I think
so,
so.
yeah,
It was
and that
whenever our oldest brother was living in Boston.
in Boston, he
He
went to
moved to
reverse
Boston
stage.
and they won the World
Oh,
Series. They broke the curse. If anyone in Boston's watching and you want to know who broke the curse, his name's Michael Nowotnik.
it's right,
Google it.
Junior. But that's our favorite. Like we absolutely love 4 days in October. I can't get enough of it. And that I mean I'm not a Red Sox fan. I like the Red Sox. I don't mind them, but I just enjoy that documentary because if you're a sports fan, like everyone knows being down 0-3, that's a nail in a coffin in a 7 game series. It has
Yeah.
been. So
Yeah, and I think I definitely mentioned this in when we had our brother on, that when I was growing up, I had the Cubs and the Red Sox were like
mhm,
my Eastern
mhm,
teams. There were four divisions, right? I had a favorite
right.
team in each division, and we knew for a fact when I was about, I don't know, 13, 14, 15, that if the world was going to end, it would be a Red Sox Cubs World Series because neither one of them could ever win one.
Yeah. It would just
So
be
in like it
lights
would be
out,
like game seven tied,
tied.
Armageddon, done, you know?
Oh,
But
that's
yeah,
good.
no, I was so happy. It's just like, because you root for, I don't know, I think it's natural to kind of root for the underdog, and the
Yeah.
Yankees are the evil empire and they've won
Mhm,
so many. And then of course, our older brother being a pretty big Boston Red Sox
mhm.
fan, um, down 0-3, it never happened before. No one ever come
Mhm.
back from down 0-3.
Nope.
And your manager, everyone knew he
Yep.
was going to steal that bag, and he stole it. I mean, it was a big deal, and I think most of the country was happy. And then we all got Boston fatigue afterwards,
Yeah,
because we
correct.
got the big mouths out of Boston. Well, the chirpa chirpa chirpa
Because
chirpa.
then it became their Celtic fans, type.
Yeah, and that's the one thing you could never connect, right? It's just
Yeah.
like it's like the hardest thing being a San Diego Padre fan and a Laker fan at the same time is that
Yeah.
you got to deal with the Dodger fans. And it's the same thing if you like the Red Sox, and I don't know, the Red Sox and the Lakers if you could.
Hmm.
But yeah, and going back to the Celtics and Lakers, those were serious rivalries in the
Yes.
80s, man.
Mm.
People were getting hurt. But I did want to throw one out that I'm not going to say changed my life, but really, the story itself kind of shaped the way that I was going to live my life for the rest of life.
Wow.
And it was about Len Bias.
Hmm.
Do you know who Len Bias was?
No, I don't know if I've seen this one.
He was a top college basketball player. I didn't know much about him, but the story broke that he overdosed on
Mhm.
cocaine and died,
Wow.
right? And the story was at that time, right, that he just got drafted. I think it was number 3 or 6 by the
Mhm.
Celtics or something like that, a top pick. And he went out to celebrate and tried cocaine for the first time, and he died,
Wow.
right? So I made that decision right then and there. I don't know if 85, 86, something like that. You can Google it, that I was never, ever going to do any hard drugs in my life, and still haven't.
Good
And
for you.
and it's one of those things. I think if you watch the 30 for 30, you might know that original story wasn't so true. You're going to have to watch it for make up your own mind about whether or not he had ever done it before. But it was one of those things, that news story that broke when I was, coming up at, I don't know, 11, 12 years old, maybe, and making that decision for myself. It's just like, okay, no way. I'm not, why take the chance? Let's
Right.
Russian roulette, honestly. So it's something where, please, guys, don't mess with the powders,
Okay.
stick to natural things, be fine, you
Yeah.
know. Nothing in here and nothing in here. Just don't do it. That's my advice to you.
Yes. Good advice.
And then one more I wanted to bring up. I don't know. I can do the math and know that you were still quite young in 1994,
Okay. Yep.
right?
Are we 10?
Um, yeah, you were 10, but there was this a 30 for 30 about June 17th, 1994.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you where I was in when the one of the main stories broke for
Yeah, yeah.
this day.
No, I remember too,
You
where
do?
I
Okay.
where I was as well, and I was at my babysitter's. I was 10. I don't know. It was June, so I would have been out of school, right? So school had finished whatever grade I was in, fourth grade, and was it fourth grade? Yeah, 94.
Yeah, because
Yes,
it's
anyways,
94. You
yeah,
you and I are the
easy to
same,
remember that. Yep.
easy to remember. Yeah.
Yeah, so and I was at Debbie Hampton's house. That's where I was, and I'm pretty sure you're speaking of OJ. On
100%.
the run, and we were watching it on the TV, and then watching the
Yeah.
Bronco, the high-speed chase.
Yeah. I mean, I just want to take everyone back to 1994 for 1 minute, right?
Let's do it.
So we are not walking around with
Cell phones.
phones,
Yeah.
not even to call people, right? I'm not talking about a smartphone. I'm talking about not only do
Yeah.
we not have smartphones, we don't have cell phones,
Hmm.
right? And we tend to get our news from the nightly news or the next day in the newspaper, right?
Yep.
But this story got on breaking news. Someone sees it, and then someone calls somebody, or someone
Hmm.
tells somebody. And then next thing you know, by word of mouth,
Hmm.
basically you find out that this is happening. I was in the parking lot at Fashion Valley Mall getting ready to work at Farrell's ice cream parlor and finding out OJ was on the run. And you know what I mean? It's just like it just went. And then I can't remember much else after that, except for maybe they had it on the TV in the sports
Hmm.
shop next door.
Yeah.
I think definitely didn't have a TV at Farrell's. I mean, it was supposed to be the 1890s for crying out loud. There's no TVs allowed, right? And it was crazy in those days. And you think about it immediately when there's breaking news, Daniel.
Hmm.
Someone texts it to you, or you get an alert on your
Hmm.
phone, and
True.
it's almost immediate that you know
Wildfire.
what's happening.
Exactly. Yeah.
Where everyone knows. It's not just like, okay, I had to wait like, I don't know, 3, 4 hours before I found out, but
Hmm.
it's still spread even without these
Yeah.
wonderful tools that we have today. And so, that's what I was kind of reflecting on today was putting myself back
Hmm.
in 1994 and thinking about how the spread of information and even misinformation can happen quite quickly,
Yeah.
you know, even without, the internet, you
Right.
know.
No, for sure. I think
So,
that's great. All right. Before we wrap, I got some non 30 for 30 mentions. Can I?
okay.
So these are documentaries, and you're probably going to hate all three of them. So the first one is the Dodger versus the Blue Jays mini movie by Fox Sports. Second one, MLB Network
I'm sorry,
special,
I'm filing that one under too soon.
2025 World Series Game 7, MLB Network special, Bob Costas. And then the last one, Backstage Dodgers, 2025 World Series. So had to do it. We watch those on repeat with my son, especially on YouTube. And then the last thing I'll say is, remember we were talking about hats last time? I ordered mine online, and it fits nicely. So seven
Yeah,
and three, seven
and
and
as you
three.
guys saw from the last episode, I went ahead and put my Team Canada hat directly on over my
On
hat.
top, you can't even tell. Yeah, the other ones
Yeah,
underneath can't even tell.
that's the only way you can get it to fit. But anyway, there's a lot out there, and I don't know how much time we spent on this one, but there's interesting things, right? And I do think there's something to be said, and there's a lot of people out there who don't watch sports, but it does affect us. It affects our culture. It affects the society we live in. It helps us make choices. There are lessons to be learned, and I'm telling you right now, one we didn't mention, Jim Valvano, Survive in Advance is a
Mhm.
great story about just doing it. If
Mhm.
no matter what you're fighting through, just keep fighting and see what happens. Just survive the day and advance to the next, and see what goes on. And if you've never heard of the 30 for 30 or you've never watched any, could be a deep dive into you know
Yeah,
some stuff, because I think it really shines a light on how sports and society and culture mix together, and it is something. I think sports can bring people together and tear us apart.
no,
you
absolutely. And
know
they're really well-made documentaries, especially. Like I
yeah,
ventured out of ESPN, films, and sometimes they're just not the same. So also really
yeah.
well done.
All right, well, anything before we go, Daniel?
That's it. I think it's great.
Okay, thank you guys so much for watching. Go ahead, like I mentioned before, leave a comment, like, subscribe, all that stuff. We're at 30, so
Peace.
keep coming.